if you're over 30 and you're still struggling to get fit and healthy, to get in shape, to gain muscle, to lose fat, I promise you are not broken. It has nothing to do with the program. And I've trained thousands of people, and yes, programs can help to a certain point, but it does not matter which program you pick. Every single program is going to get you a result. Certain programs might get you more fat loss, certain programs might get you more muscle, but it doesn't have to do with the program, especially after you're 30 years old. It has to do with your habits. The habits are your most important thing as you get older, because one thing I learned, again, I've tried every single program. Even when I did bodybuilding, I did like dog crap training, which is like old school 70s training where you trained at technical failure. Like I've tried everything. And with my clients, I've built hundreds, if not 1,000 different programs over the years. And the program doesn't matter. I could make up a program with AI tomorrow in 15 minutes and give it to 100 people, and 75 of those people will get results from that program. So it has nothing to do with the program. It has everything to do with your habits and how you live your life and the consistency with everything. And, one big thing that I've seen, especially here in my 30s, is sleep is so very important. Like I never slept in my 20s. I was drinking so much coffee in the morning. I think usually I had like 6 cups of coffee during the day, and then I'd have my pre-workout before the gym, which was, I think, 200 milligrams of caffeine. So I was overstimulated, and I never really got great sleep. And then in my 30s, and I talked about this in my last video, I gave up caffeine multiple times, and every time I've given up caffeine, my sleep improves tremendously. It's like you're sleeping like a kid again. When you were a kid, you didn't drink caffeine. At least, most parts of the world, they're not drinking caffeine as kids, maybe in Europe. But it's like you sleep like a kid again, and your recovery is so much better. And a lot of the greats talk about how sleep is so important, but no one puts it first. Everyone is overstimulated and pushing themselves to the absolute limit. When you're constantly pushing with caffeine and stimulants and even Adderall, I know some people do, or there's this other supplement, or yerba mate, or what's it called? Yohimbine, which is like a extract from tree bark that is like a fat burner. Green tea extract, all those things, it just pushes you into a state of fight or flight all the time. Your body is literally never safe, so it never can relax. And the half-life of coffee, it's different studies, but roughly 8 to 11 hours is the half-life. So even if you stop drinking your coffee at, let's say, 12 o'clock, half of it's still going to be in your system by the time you go to bed, and your REM sleep is shit. So that's one thing I always tell my clients, especially in their 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s, is if you can cut back on the stimulants and relearn how to use your natural energy, you'll recover so much better. You'll have better muscle gains and better fat loss if you can limit your stimulants. So sleep is so huge, and being consistent with your bedtime as well is one thing that I've found over the years that really helps. I used to, I'd go to bed sometimes at like 10, 11 o'clock, and then sometimes I go to bed at 1, 2 o'clock. It was all over the place, and your circadian rhythm needs a baseline. And when you have that baseline, your circadian rhythm, you go to the bed every night at the same time, your recovery is going to be so much better, so much better. So sleep is so very crucial. And again, sleep is a habit, and you can learn to sleep better. Again, the first part of that is reducing the stimulant intake. I can't tell you how many clients I have that have 500 to 1,000 milligrams of caffeine in their system, and trying to work them down, over the course of a few months to get down to like 1 or 2 cups is extremely difficult, but they always get better results long term. And if you have any kind of underlying anxiety or generalized anxiety disorder, caffeine is not the drug for you. I don't do caffeine, and I still can deadlift and squat 300-400 pounds. Like, It's not the end all be all. So especially as you get older, I think it's really important to focus on your sleep. And going back into habits, as you're getting older, your habits are going to change. Foods that worked for you in your 20s aren't going to work for you in your 30s. Like, a lot of people get food allergies later on in life. And not even necessarily food allergies, but certain foods just don't digest well. I have tons of clients that, don't do well with protein, with meat. They're bloated all the time. That's usually a common symptom with dairy, but it can happen with anything. I have clients that can't do beans or lentils. Like, they'll be bloated all day long. Their digestion gets screwed up, which is not as common because you're going to get a lot of fiber from beans. That's going to actually give you better motility. But my point is, every single person is different. You got to find what works for you. And going back to what I was saying initially with this video, is the program doesn't matter. Any program will work. It's your habits that go along with whatever program you pick. So habits, again, like getting better sleep, having the same bedtime, not scrolling at night, not doom scrolling, not binging Netflix. I'll give you guys a great example. I had a business coach, and I wanted to go from 6 figures to 7 figures, and she asked me, okay, what does your day look like? What are all your habits? What's your morning routine, your nighttime routine look like? And I was like, okay, I do this. I wake up in the morning. I usually do this. I go for a walk, blah, 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 blah. And she was like, so every night you watch a 2.5-hour movie? And I'm like, yep. And she's like, how often do you read? I'm like, I never read. I've never been a great reader. Probably the ADHD. It's really hard for me to read. She's like, well, think about like all the millionaires and billionaires. Do you think that they're binge watching Netflix every night? She's like, no, they're reading books. They're gaining knowledge. They're not watching their favorite shows. She's like, think about all the people that own Lamborghinis and Ferraris and McLarens and Bugattis and all that. Have you ever seen a Bugatti or a Lamborghini commercial on TV? No. Why haven't you seen one of those commercials on TV? Because all the people that can afford a Lamborghini, Ferraris, and Bugattis aren't watching TV. So I had to learn the habit of letting go of binge watching TV all the time. And I had to learn how to read. And guess what? I ended up making way more money because of that. And that was just one small habit that I had to change. So your habits are the most important thing, like hands down. The program does not matter. You can buy a $15 Instagram or TikTok program. It's not going to be the end all be all. It's your habits and your micro habits that are going to make the most changes in your life. I'm just getting into the gym right now. We're going to do a chest day. I think maybe chest, triceps, and shoulders. And I vary it up. I don't stick to a program. I do my own thing. And I really feel that, going to the gym and having fun and doing what you want to do is still going to yield great results. If you have your habits in check, your consistency with going to the gym, and your nutrition consistency down, the program and how you work out in the gym is not going to matter. It could be a 1 to 4% difference at the end of the year. It's not going to be anything crazy. All right, let's get in there. So one thing I will mention is, getting older, one thing I definitely see in myself, and I've seen in a lot of clients, is sometimes you compare yourself now to what you used to look like. And oftentimes we can get in our head about it, and our ego can kind of take over. And that's where I've seen a lot of my problems and injuries come in my 30s, is where I start pushing even harder. I start pushing way more weight, start doing way more, and then an injury happens. And I'm like, damn, why did I do that? And I know better. I know when I'm in the gym or I see someone else lifting something that I used to be able to lift, and I'm like, oh, that looks like fun. I know I can get back to that. And then, you get in your ego a little bit and you start pushing. But you got to be really careful about that as you get older, because all it takes is one serious injury, and then, you could be out for months, or if not years. I remember way back in the day, I tore my hamstring right off the bone. And this is when I competed, and I had done all the steroids and did everything. And I was dehydrated and I was sprinting, tore the hamstring right off the bone, and I couldn't squat for almost 2 years. So that's why it's so important to try and maintain a healthy relationship with how hard you push in the gym and to not get too much in your own head and to let your ego take over. So one thing that's another non-negotiable for me is I have to warm up for about 20 minutes now that I'm in my 30s. I have to. It's a non-negotiable for me, and for a lot of my clients, I highly recommend that they do the same. I remember in my 20s, I would walk on the treadmill for 10, 15 minutes, sometimes not even, and I'd just get right into the workout. Of course, I'd do like, my warm-up sets starting with whatever the first exercise was, but I'd never actually like warm up my whole body and stretch everything out. And that's one big thing with consistency going on in your 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, and so forth, is you want to train smart, you want to train hard, but you want to keep yourself not injured. And when I used to train really like a crazy person in my 20s, I probably averaged 5 to 10 injuries per year. And now in my 30s with warming up, I probably average 1 to 3 injuries for the year. So it definitely makes a much bigger difference. So again, these are all habits that can be learned. In the beginning, it can be tough. They say it takes 21 days to make or break a habit, but if you do it consistently for 3 weeks, it'll become a new normal. So all these things stack up, and that's what I always try and explain to my clients over the years is, think about if you do every single thing right. Let's just say if you drink the right amount of water every day for a year, that might make you 1 to 2% better than if you hadn't drank that water. And let's say you had 30 to 40 or even 50 grams of protein per meal for an entire year, that might make you 2 to 4% better for the entire year. And if you warm up properly every single time and then you don't have as many injuries, that might make you another 2% better. But what happens is you stack all those up. So if you do all the right things and you're consistent, warm up, water, sleep, hydration, stimulants, your training, intensity, all these things, those percentages, 1 to 2%, 3%, 4%, that might add up to 25%. So if you do everything right, in a year, you can get 25% better in all areas. Versus if you just pick one thing, which is what most people do in their 20s, most people I talk to, they're overstimulated, but they train super, super hard in the gym, right? That's not the end all be all. That's only one small portion. But imagine if you were consistent in every area with all the different habits. Those stack up. So in the end of the year, you might be getting 25%, 30%, 35% better because you're doing all the right things. All the micro habits are correct. All right, let's get into the workout. So getting back to what I was talking about with injuries and whatnot and being smart and taking preventative measures, I used to bench press. I used to incline bench press. Loved doing it, but I had a torn rotator cuff in my left shoulder, and every so often, every few months, I'd tweak it, and then my shoulder would be hurting for about a month or two. So in my 30s, that's one thing that I've pushed back on, is not bench pressing or not incline bench pressing. And, that's a serious injury that I had playing football when I was a kid. So I strictly use machines now, and I find that you can still push yourself hard, as long as you get up with the weights and give it some intensity. But this is why, as you get older, as the injuries start to stack up, just like everything in life, as I told you, like you do everything right, hydration, sleep, food, those percentages stack up over the course of a year. Well, your injuries stack up over the course of a lifetime. So as you're getting older, you might have to start pulling back on certain exercises you used to love. Because again, an injury can take months, if not years, to recover from, as I told you with my hamstring. And so here, I'll still push moderately heavy weight. I'll try and be in the 6 to 12 rep range when I'm going heavy, maybe 6 to 8. But I don't use my ego. It's, I'm trying to be in this for the long haul. One interesting training philosophy that I've adopted this past few months that's really interesting and completely different than how I used to train is I used to train hypertrophy based training where I would do 3 to 5 sets per exercise, which would usually equate to 25 to 30 sets per workout. And now being in my 30s, I've realized that no matter what, even if I have really good sleep, I still can't recover from that much volume. So I like to lift heavy, still moderately heavy, and I'm always very intense. So I've been doing a 2-set per exercise regime, and I found that I actually like it a ton because, one, I'm not in the gym for 3 hours, and I can push myself a lot harder during those 2 sets, because when you take out the 3rd set completely, it's almost like a switch in your brain and you're like, oh, I only have to do 2 sets. So you're willing to work a lot harder for those 2 sets. And therefore you put 110% effort into those 2 because you know you don't have 3 or 4 or 5. So I'll warm up with each exercise, and then I'll do my heaviest set, which is what I'm doing right now. And I'll just do 2 sets. Usually, depending on what exercise it is, it's gonna be in the 6 to 12 rep range. So I found that for me specifically for the past few months has allowed me to recover and actually build muscle without being so systemically fatigued in the gym that by the 4th exercise, I'm completely shot. And there's really no point in continuing to work out. One thing that I do that I talked about in my last video is a little subconscious reprogramming trick to keep me safe, but also to push my limits, because that's another thing I've seen with clients is, you know, they want to push harder, but they get in their head again because we're in this for the long haul and we don't want to get injured. So it's like we have that risk versus reward in our mind going to the gym, and you know you're pushing, but then you hold back a little bit. And so what I found specifically for me that's really helped is I have a notepad, and before I even do my set, I write down how much I'm going to do, and I look at the previous week, and I either increase by 1 rep or by some weight, so maybe 5 pounds, or depending on the exercise, maybe 10 pounds. And I do that before I do the set, and it almost tricks your brain. It's like a subconscious reprogramming, and 95% of the time, I end up getting it. And that just goes to show you how strong your mind actually is. Your body is going to give out long before your mind gives out. So, you know, Arnold Schwarzenegger used to say he would go till he couldn't go anymore, till failure, and then he would do 4 more reps. And all that's doing is that's logically telling yourself like, oh, I can actually do a lot more than I think. So I use that methodology with all my workouts, and it's really proven to help me out and to get me the most amount of strength and muscle size, especially getting older. And right now, currently, I'm doing a mini bulk. I don't go crazy. Like I usually try and stay in between the 10 and 15% body fat range. But I'll toss a picture up for you guys so you can see. This is what I looked like a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. I was probably between 5 and 6% body fat, and I maintained this for over a year. And now I'm about 22 pounds heavier right now, because I'm trying to get my strength back, trying to put on some muscle before I cut again. And, you know, when people look at this, again, there's no steroids involved here. I am on TRT. I've been on TRT for 6 years. If you don't know what that is, it's testosterone replacement therapy. I'm at my normal levels. I'm not like pushing higher levels or anything like that. But this cut up picture of about a year and a half ago that I maintained for a year, I did that without any supplementation, without caffeine, without fat burners, and without doing any cardio, which people are always like, how did you do that without cardio? And, you know, back in the day when I competed, I used to do fasted cardio in the morning. I would do the stair stepper. I go absolutely all out. And what I realized is I was always fatigued and I would lose a lot of muscle. And so when I cut up about a year and a half ago, all I did was walk. All I did was count my steps. I would try and get 10,000 steps every single day. On days where I wasn't working out, I'd try to get 15 to 20,000 steps. And those steps add up. So going forward in your life, do what you like to do. If you like to do the stair stepper, do it. I don't like to do stair stepper. So, you can get healthy and get in the best shape of your life in your 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. There's nothing holding you back. You just have to be consistent with all the different things you do. I hope you guys and I'll talk to you guys soon.